The only way he could deny himself was by focusing on the cross. There was grace in that. Grace in that. That Jesus' death on the cross was his focus, his purpose in his life. Because it was there that Jesus ransomed the world from sin. So that's the first place he found grace. The second place, looking back over those many years that he found grace, was when Jesus said, "Those who lose their lives for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will find it." How many of his brothers and sisters in the faith, those whom he had preached the word of God to, at Pentecost that first day when thousands were saved, those that he had interacted with and talked with and had fellowship with over these decades, how many of them had died in faith? Crucified and burned like torches along the road to Rome because of Nero's madness. How many of them had died by being thrown to the lions in the Colosseum? How many of them had died for Jesus' sake and the sake of the gospel? And he realized the truth of what Jesus had said. That yes, those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. And the reason he understood that truth was the third and final piece of the grace. He didn't hear it that first day when Jesus said that he must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes and be killed. He didn't hear the rest of Jesus' statement. When Jesus said, "And after 3 days, be raised." How he could never forget that Sunday morning. That Sunday morning after Jesus had died on the cross. When, huddled in fear, the disciples sat and they heard a knock at the door. It was Mary Magdalene coming in saying, "The Lord has been raised, just as he said." Well, Peter, being the impetuous one, took off running. He and John ran towards the tomb. John got there first, but John stayed outside the tomb. He just looked in. But Peter, being his usual crazy self, runs right on into the tomb. And there he sees the grave clothes, not strewn about, but folded. The cloth that had covered Jesus' head sitting at the head, the clothing, the strips of cloth that had bound his body were sitting at the foot. He was not there. He was raised. The truth of that would ring throughout his life. It happened again not long after when Jesus called Peter and said, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said it to him not once, not twice, but 3 times, to match the 3 times he had denied his Lord. "Do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes, you know I love you." He knew that one day he would give his life an offering for the sake of the one who had given his life for him. Death came quickly for that old man that day as they nailed his hands and feet to that cross. Peter wished not to be crucified like his Lord, and so he asked that they crucify him upside down. To this day, the upside down cross is the symbol we use for St. Peter. And those truths, that grace that he heard that day from Jesus, it rings true for us as well. Because we know that death is not the last word. That cross of Jesus stands empty. He has been raised from the dead. We know the truth that those who give up their lives for the sake of the gospel will save it. We've seen it in brothers and sisters who have shared the good news with us through the years as they have faithfully proclaimed God's saving word. And some have suffered for it. Do you realize there are more martyrs being produced today than at any time in human history? People are dying for the faith of Jesus all throughout the world. We know the truth of that. But third and most importantly for us, we know the truth that the only way we can deny ourselves, the only way we can break free from the captivity to our sin that enslaves us, is by focusing on that